Okay, so looking at router 4, we're going to go ahead and start with a regular telnet connection to router 4, 150.1.2.2. Log in on router 4. Switching over to router 1, we see our audit trail kicked off, stopping our other session, and show logging. The sessions there. Our last one was start a telnet session connecting to 150.1.2.2 on 23. Go ahead and clear our logging out here. A look at our session information. In this case, we do see an established session, port 23. It is showing as telnet. So next, we're going to switch back to router 4. Exit out of that session, and we're going to establish another session. In this case, we had 3030 was the port we were looking at for our port mapping. Again, that port mapping, we also used an access list, just matching for router 2's loopback address as the device using that port. Establish a connection again from router 4 through the IOS Firewall to router 2. Jump back to router 1. Take a look at our logging here as well. Again, in this case, have a separate session here. Our earlier session stopped, a new session started. Again, telnet session showing here 2.2 on 3030. And show IP inspect sessions. Again, showing that CBAC did identify that as a telnet session. Okay, so we're going to switch back to router 4, exit that connection. Now on router 2, we had the rotary command listed, the rotary command listening on a higher port value. With that rotary listening on a higher port value, I'm going to go ahead and establish a connection to router 2, but not with that loopback. Our address for our access list with a port mapping was just matching the 150.1.2.2. We're going to go ahead and telnet to router 2. We're going to use a different address here. We're going to go ahead and use that serial interface. The serial interface connecting from router 1 to router 2. Now, router 2 with that rotary is listening on all his interfaces. So he's listening on all his interfaces on that other high number port, not just a loopback. Go ahead and establish this telnet session. Switch back to router 1 and take a look at how router 1 sees this. Now he stopped the earlier telnet session. Do a show logging. Our last telnet session was stopped, but we do not have a start for the new telnet session. Take a look at what we have here for our sessions. Now the session here that we have, it's on that port 3030, but because the address doesn't match what's in our access list, he's just seeing that as TCP. So in this case, that isn't matched by the telnet inspection. That's being matched by the TCP inspection. So again, it can be slightly confusing. Normally, a standard access list is used to denote source. In this particular case, the standard access list is being used to denote who is the person that is using that other high-numbered port. In this case, the 150.1.2.2 being the device that was using that particular high-numbered port. So in this example, we had router 2 as a high-numbered port there. Alternatively, looking at our topology, we could have, say, router 2's loopback listening on port 3030. We could also have router 3's loopback listening on some other high-numbered port. We could match both of those as telnet traffic. So again, slight difference in the way the access lists are treated here. The access list for the port mapping being used to match who is listening and who is going to have the connection for those high number ports. In this case, because it wasn't matched by my port mapping, it falls to just TCP. Now, for other telnet sessions, switching back to router 4, and just exit that connection. We establish the same connection, again connecting to router 2's serial interface, having that connection to router 2, take a look at what router 1 sees. Because that was not part of the port mapping, our port mapping for Telnet was with an access list, but that port mapping is just for the non-standard ports. So my normal port for Telnet, my normal port 23, is still seen as a Telnet session. This is still seen as a Telnet session in my show IP inspect sessions, still showing as Telnet. So port 23, he's always seeing as Telnet. In this case, the port map with the access list defining what the other high number port is. Okay, let's pull back the running config again and step through this one more time. So here we have our port map. Port map saying that we have some devices listening for Telnet on port 3030. Could be instead of port 23, could be in addition to port 23. In this case, that's the devices listed in the standard access list 2. Again, normally a standard denoting source. In this particular case, denoting the person that is listening on that higher number port. And again, having the telnet there, again, looking at what the audit trails look like, seeing the information for session starting and stopping. We did also have a TCP inspection. For those that did not match the telnet when we tried to telnet to the port 3030 on router 2 on a different interface, those were picked up by the TCP inspection. Again, and that was as shown in the show IP inspect sessions, looking at what information it said as far as what protocol it saw that traffic as. Different sort of methods, looking at things differently. Again, whenever possible, try to verify things. For the most part, if it's something you've configured a lot, generally don't necessarily need to verify as much, but for the scope of the lab, try and make sure that you do have time to verify sections. Make sure that what you have is what they're looking for. And beyond that, you may want to, again, get clarification. If I wanted to do port 3030 for any of router 2's addresses, I may want to have an access list that it did include the other interface addresses of router 2. This example, I did just include the loopback interface in that standard access list. All right, so next we're going to move on to zone-based firewall.